Hi. Oh, sorry, my thing was muted. I'm doing a community debate thing in like 2 minutes. What's up?
Um, I just wanted to ask if you saw the claims that were made after Witkov's meeting with Russia and with Putin.
Which
I
doing
returned
where?
home.
Okay.
He made them today, and I was like very busy with volunteer work. I just returned, and apparently Witkov said that the best plan to achieve ceasefire to Trump after meeting Putin for 4 hours is to give them all the territories basically that they try to annex illegally and make it legal. That's his plan. And Kellogg said just now that division of Ukraine into zones is proposed. British, French, and Russian troops on the ground.
Yeah, that sounds like Witkoff. He was the guy who was on. Did you ever see him on Tucker Carlson? He didn't even know the disputed territories. He was like
And it's
Donbass
Kellogg.
and Luhansk and.
No. That's Kellogg. That's the suggestion of Kellogg.
Oh no, I know that was the guy that you mentioned before. Our foreign.
Witkov,
Yeah, that was him on Tucker Carlson that was saying that. Yeah, so it's not surprising that these guys are retarded and are never going to try to pull any concession from Russia at all. So.
Kellogg said, but to quote from the journal, he said, "You could almost make it look like what happened with Berlin after World War II, when you had a Russian zone, a French zone, a British zone, and a US zone."
That's pretty dumb, yeah.
Are we the Third Reich?
Yeah, I mean, it's one thing and another pile of retarded shit that this admin is doing, yeah.
I didn't expect anything good after that meeting, obviously, but this, excuse me, Berlin was partitioned after they started a brutal fucking war that killed millions, bajillions of people, and then they lost the war and they been decisively defeated, demilitarized, and then partitioned. Why in the actual fuck are we suggesting that sort of thing about to do with Ukraine?
I mean, it's yeah. I don't do wise here anymore, so yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know. I just was like, I was supposed to be fuming, but I'm just so dumbfounded by this. I don't even have the energy to actually be angry at this point. It's just seriously that's your big negotiation out of the deal. That's it.
Yeah.
Well, that's it pretty much.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. Rip.
Yeah, don't say rip, okay? It's not nice.
It's not
you
nice,
said that
true.
last.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't comment on it last time.
Okay.
But
Good luck, and hopefully, I don't even know what we hope for, but hopefully something different happens. Yeah.
Not this. Anything but this. Yeah. Bye bye.
Yeah. Be careful. Okay. Hi. What's up?
Okay.
Okay. Wait. What is our timer per conversation?
Okay. So it's going to start. You just need to put up 6 minutes.
6 minutes. Okay. Per person? All right.
Yeah,
I understand what you. Okay. Or if I can explain it to everybody, go.
Yeah. Okay. So, I'm just going to go over kind of what the segment is going to be. So anybody that has signed up on the Google form that went out, please join the Stream Disagreements channel. If you have not signed up, you can join the Stream Disagreements channel, but you are going to be put at the lowest priority. If we have extra time or people don't show up, you might be called up. But down in the Stream Disagreements channel, I'm going to be doing microphone checks. The clip channel head has asked that if you would like to use a camera, you're more than welcome to. So if you want to do that, I will also be checking that as well. Basically how this is going to go is Destiny has written an opinion piece for our newsletter that we put out on the subreddit. If you haven't checked that out, please check out the Pragmatic Papers. We are on our 6th week of doing this. Seems like we've gotten pretty good feedback on it so far. So I asked Destiny if he would be willing to start to write opinion pieces to where he can kind of flesh out all of these things that chat argues with him over and try to get a better understanding of what it is that he is saying in a way that isn't necessarily just going back and forth reading chat. And this is also going to be kind of a whole community approach. So what we're going to be doing is Within every single chat, we are going to be posting a poll. After 5 minutes of the people talking, they're going to have a 1 minute opening to be able, or up to a minute, to be able to kind of give their position and what they disagree on, what they might agree on, kind of where they want the discussion to go. Then they will have 4 minutes that it will just be back and forth. And in that last minute of the 6, we are going to post that poll and people are going to vote on whether or not they would like to extend the time that the person is there, or it's kind of, I mean, kick or keep, I guess, is the easiest way to put it. But basically, if people get extended twice, they'll be able to just talk until you say like anything else, or the conversation comes to a close. We're going to try to get through as many people as possible. The plan is to have this cut into a YouTube video that will be posted on the DGG Wiki, as well as with Destiny's op-ed. We're going to try to create a big section on the wiki that shows your opinions, kind of like a more fleshed out positions page that used to be on the website. I'm going to be posting a mega thread on the subreddit, which I actually need to do now. So if any of my mods are listening, if they could do that, that would be super cool. Otherwise, I'll do it here in about 10 minutes. In that mega thread, you guys are more than welcome to talk about anything that you want to in there. But I will be looking for feedback for this segment because this is our first time doing it. And so I would like to see any criticisms or, positive or negative feedback that you guys have, so that we can make this better and better every single time. So all that I would ask of Destiny is we're going to kind of start this segment out with you doing a opening statement, basically. So I don't know if you want to read your op-ed or kind of give your general opinion, but that's kind of what we're going to be shooting for. I just sent you a DM, by the way, if you could just confirm that. But yeah, so what we're going to do is I'm going to drag people up here. Depending on how the polls go, we'll drag people out and drag new people in. And everybody should be already screened and their levels should be good. So do you have any questions for me?
No, I think it should be good. Yeah.
Okay. Alrighty. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down and start getting more people staged. If you want to go ahead and do your opening statement, and then the Ivory Fool is going to be our first one. So I'll drag them up when you're done.
Okay. Cool. All good?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Got him. Okay, so I think he said it. We do weekly. I'm trying to write more. We'll see how that goes. Weekly or bi-weekly. There are some things that you guys all disagree with me on. So now you have a more formal way to fight with me on it without just getting banned from chat. Based. I think my 3 points are basically that attacking billionaires is stupid because, like, in terms of truth value, it's just most of the claims made are incorrect. Most policies that get suggested are ineffective. And politically, it's a non-starter whenever you talk about any of these things, I guess. I think those are the 3 main points of my article. Everybody disagrees with me for a variety of reasons on a lot of these things, so yeah, that's it. Good luck. How are you doing today, buddy?
I'm all right.
Cool. Me too. Did you do anything fun today?
I prepared for this. That was really fun.
Wow, cool. All right, almost. Boom, boom. Wait, I'm almost done. Hold on. Boom, boom.
Holding. Horses held.
Good job. Okay. All right. Wait. Go. Right now, go. Go.
Okay. Okay, so your studies were from 2015 about how billionaires and the middle class generally have the same opinion. And I think, if we were doing those studies again today, we have Elon Musk literally buying the public square. And then, just before this segment, you were watching Mark Cuban, give his opinion, and he's become like a very popular figure for the Democrats. And it's kind of just like, what credentials does Mark Cuban have? Like, why is he the one leading? And I think if you want to talk about billionaire influence, I think you're correct that they're not buying elections, but they are buying the conversation. They're buying what people are thinking about. And so even if it is the case that 90% of the opinions are shared between the middle class and billionaires, is that truly what the people think, or have they just not had the ability or the opportunity to form their own opinions, and has it just been fed to them?
Okay, so here would be my question. My question would be, how can you tell when a billionaire is buying people's opinions versus when a billionaire is becoming popular because he happens to represent a lot of opinions?
Yeah, I think it's a fundamental issue with the whole idea of a marketplace of ideas, because in a marketplace of ideas, it's the ideas of the market that get popular. And it's not democratic, because in a democratic system, every person has one vote. And you don't get more votes if you're attractive. You don't get more votes if you're more wealthy. You don't get more votes if you are good at some alternate skill. But in a marketplace public, all those things are out the window. And so that's something that we really need to be focused on, and we can't just dismiss that.
Yeah, I understand everything you're saying, but I'm just saying in terms of the claim was basically that billionaires are buying public opinion. But my question is, how do we know that they're buying a public opinion and they're not just identifying a popular opinion and then inhabiting that space?
I mean, I think this is like very understudied, so I don't have a way to give you like a very concrete answer. I think
my counterfactuals, I guess, for this are that
clear.
Well, I sure you just want to sort of assure, but then my counterfactuals, or no, I shouldn't be counterfactual. My examples for why I believe this to be the case, I'll go back to that 2016, I think, primary, where you had two billionaires competing and they got crushed. So it seems like, and one of them, Bloomberg, right, spent an ungodly amount of money and got nowhere. So it seems like he was unable to buy public opinion there. Now, maybe there's some reason why Steyer and Bloomberg were unable to buy public opinion, even though they were billionaires, and other billionaires are. But then I would have to know, like, what's the difference? Like, it seems to me more like Elon Musk has identified some particular public opinion that's really popular, and then he's moved into that space rather than he's paid for everybody to be changed. If anything, I would argue Elon Musk was actually morphed by that space before he even began to fund it and, I guess, perpetuate it.
Sure. I mean, I think the main point is that there's no reason to be confident about there's no reason to be confident about whether or not billionaires have excise influence or not, because we don't have the information, we don't have the studies to kind of say it. And for example, I just think in general, having your ideas be driven by a marketplace of ideas is really dangerous, because things get really ossified. It's really hard for new ideas to emerge because everyone's just talking about the same idea over and over and over again. And it's just what's kind of popular, and it's not giving people the opportunity to kind of think for themselves.
I mean, I agree with that, but I don't think that's necessarily a problem with billionaires. I think that's just a problem with social media in general these days. So, like, I think this issue shows up on Facebook, on Twitter before Elon Musk bought it, on Instagram, on on Reddit.
Sure, but dismissing the issue of people having extra influence in politics outright because they kind of agree with the median voter, or the average person, I think that there needs to be some middle ground, or there needs to be more nuance in that conversation, because this is a really important conversation, as we kind of just have an entire half of the population just completely epistemically like collapsed.
Well, I can if the claim is that people who have a lot of wealth can have an outsized influence on like buying political ad spending, and can even like change some American minds because of how much they can spend and fund in that direction, I would definitely agree with that. I wouldn't say that's exclusive to billionaires. That's any really wealthy person or movement or corporation is going to have that power for sure. But it seems like the claim that's often made is basically,
well, the billionaires are going to have the most power.
I mean, they potentially, as individuals, although like collections of people can come together and donate money, or other like groups of people, like, and even how people choose to use that power is different as well. So for instance, Elon Musk might be the one driving what's going on Twitter now, but that could have happened prior to Elon Musk. Like, you didn't need a billionaire there. Imagine if Jack Dorsey, said, we're going to start pushing this type of content. Well, some people would argue it was happening, right, with the COVID censorship and everything, and that didn't have to involve a billionaire. I don't think Jack Dorsey was a billionaire. So I feel like the billionaire thing is just misidentifying or mislabeling like what the actual problems are, which might be like how social media is driven today. Such that, like, if you got rid of every billionaire, you would still have conceivably the exact same set of problems.
Yeah, I mean, I think the main issue is you shouldn't tell people to stop talking about billionaires because billionaires have the most power in this paradigm. They
do, but like, it's not so much so that it's influencing the issue. Like what I just said before. If you got rid of all, well, it's not that it's nuanced. If you got rid of all the billionaires, the problem would still be there 99.9%.
Okay, yeah, and so then we can go on to the other points that you made about how.
But if the problem is still 99.9% there, then why would it matter if we got rid of all the billionaires? Like that, why would that be our fixation? Okay, also the timer went off. I don't know if that means we're supposed to pull. Somebody's figuring that out. Uh-oh.
Hey,
what?
Sorry, this is going to be weird to do this way.
What?
I just realized this.
Why?
So at 5 minutes, you should set the timer for 5 minutes, and then we'll do the poll, and then just as the poll is compiling for the last minute, let's just do it that way.
Well,
you know what I mean?
Oh, am I doing the poll or are you doing the poll?
No. They're already being spammed.
Oh, so, well then we could just set it for 6 minutes and then I'll just check the poll at 5 minutes. Yeah.
Well, no, you'll check it at 6 minutes, but we'll try to post it at 5. I was just trying to do it in an easier way so that the chat heads would know. But as long as they know to spam it at 5 minutes, that's fine. Oh. Sorry for interrupting.
Okay. So wait. So what did the poll say? Where are we at?
It's about 51-48.
I have more points about wealth taxes and.
Well, you're a slave to the poll right now. So what is it? Oh, you should have cut it at 6. So we should cut it. So where are we at? Yes or no? For time extension.
We're at like basically 50-50, but
well, not basically. Just pick one. If there's
it's no. He's not going to be extended.
Okay. I'm sorry, Ivory. They thumbs you down. They jubileed you. Be careful. Thank you, though. We love you. Be careful.
I'll meet you in Detroit.
Okay, Jesus. Okay, bye.
All right, I'll drag up the next person.
Okay.
It's growing pains. We'll get it.
Okay, yeah.
All right, Spartan Party, you are up.
And then, Hobbit, do you have to be in this room, or?
No.
Okay,
I'll
just because it fucks my relay up. Okay, love you. Be careful.
Yep, you're good.
Hello. Spartan Party.
Hey.
Hi. What do you got for us? Okay, your timer starts now. Good luck.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I'm so sorry. My live stream was lagging, so I didn't realize there was like an echo, and I didn't realize why. But yeah, so you make there's 3 parts to your point. That hyperfixation on billionaires is misguided, politically ineffective, and distracting. I actually agree with you that it is misguided and that it is distracting. My disagreement entirely hinges on whether or not it is politically effective. And I think that you can mitigate the problems with how misguided the argument is and with how distracting the argument is if you focus the criticism not on billionaires as a class, but specifically on billionaires' influence on the Trump White House. Because you're right, billionaires can't buy elections. But Donald Trump, in Donald Trump's America, they can buy influence. They can buy access to Donald Trump. And this is very, very clear. And I think that Americans have a very particular view of what this country is. They have intuitions about what it should be, and what that is not corrupt and not oligarchic. And I don't believe that the United States is an oligarchy right now, but I do believe that Donald Trump's administration has more oligarchic tendencies than previous administrations, and that this is absolutely a wedge issue that you can peel people away from, not necessarily the MAGA base, but that are in the center. And prior to this, and prior to Donald Trump's more mask-off association with billionaires, felt that the Democrats were less in touch with the common man. This is a great way to demonstrate that Donald Trump is out of touch with the common person, and that he is basically self-serving and rewards loyalty. And one of the few ways that you can demonstrate loyalty in a way that he can appreciate is
so I understand the line of logic you're using. Do you think that if in 2016 there would have been like a really good black candidate that wanted to run for office and you were on the Republican side, do you think good messaging would have been our guy's not black?
No.
Okay, I feel like the issue is we've just elected Donald Trump for a second term, and I feel like the anti-billionaire talking points are, now I'm not trying to say whether they're right or wrong, but I feel like it's a low information talking point, and that like you can grasp it immediately and understand, like, oh, billionaire bad, right? And low information voters voted for Trump overwhelmingly compared to more, higher information voters. So we have Trump for a second term, who is a billionaire, brags about being a billionaire. Now he's staffed himself with billionaires. It just seems like the billionaire talking point doesn't do much for us electorally.
Do you think that Elon Musk had a positive or negative impact on the Wisconsin race for Republicans?
I actually don't know. It's hard to say.
Okay, because that's a very fair response. It's probably the most honest one. But I would say that it seems like he, as a whole, was a negative. Democrats in the last couple of weeks shifted their messaging from being specific to the region. That was obviously still present, but to be against Elon Musk's meddling in local affairs. It seemed to have got out the vote there. I don't have any
but do we attack Elon Musk because he's a billionaire? I feel like there's so many good reasons to attack.
We attack the fact that he is using... No, I agree with you. But we attack the fact that he is leveraging his wealth in order to gain influence. He's not an expert on government. He would never be in the room if he was not a billionaire. And that's the corruption that I think you can attack them on. Again, do not attack billionaires as a class. Attack those billionaires that decide to leverage their wealth in order to degrade the democratic institutions of the United
States. I agree with you 100%, but then I feel like you've given the argument away to me. When you say don't attack billionaires as a class, attack people that leverage their wealth in bad ways, I agree with that 1,000,000,000,000%. And I think that would be a really effective point of attack would be this guy spent like, what was it, $44 billion or acquired $44 billion to buy Twitter. I think it's a horrible thing. And I think that people should fixate on that. But I think that's fundamentally different than all billionaires are bad, or we should just attack billionaires, or attack Elon Musk for being a billionaire. We should attack him. We should attack him for buying access to the White House. We should attack Trump for selling access to the White House.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. But as a part of the buying and selling access, there's an element that is billionaire centric, and also if you're talking about the nation after a Trump White House,
why would you wait? Hold on. Why focus on the billionaire thing when there's a much more specific and immediately harmful thing that even people on the right should agree with is bad, right? Or independents at least. The idea that you shouldn't be able to sell or buy access to the White House. That was a anti-Hunter Biden talking about. You shouldn't be able to sell or buy access to the White House. So, but why fixate
intrinsically linked?
It's not though. A 100 millionaire or a group of investors or a ton of other people could theoretically buy. Like Hunter Biden wasn't a billionaire, and his whole accusation was about buying and selling access to the White House. That's a talking point that conservatives, used a lot for Hunter Biden. But we didn't need any billionaires there, no? So I don't know why we would fix it on the billionaire thing, which is like less specific, and then brings in a whole bunch of people that people do like Trump.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that, because when I was doing research for this, I was looking at the Trump cabinet, and there's a lot of contradictory claims about just how wealthy it is. There's some that say there's 13 billionaires in it, which would be ridiculous. That'd be half the cabinet. But in general, when you actually go through the cabinet list, almost all of them are millionaires. And I wasn't sure when you were talking about the billionaires, you were referring to like only exclusively actual billionaires, or just the wealthy in general that use their wealth, that weaponize their wealth in order to gain Donald Trump's ear.
Well, I mean, I would say so. I guess like the issue is that like when people buy access to things in bad ways, and when they use their money for bad things, this is just bad. Mm-hmm. This is always bad. But we don't have to fixate on a person's wealth to say this is a bad thing. We can just say that it's bad to do this thing. Like, why not attack the action? Like buying and selling access to the White House is really bad. It doesn't really matter how much money you have.
That is true, but and now we're talking in circles. In order to be able to buy access to the White House, you have to have that money.
You don't though. People with $1 million can influence local elections, or people can donate, or there are tons of ways that like collections of investors or companies could theoretically buy or sell different types of access. Again, remember, Hunter Biden is not a billionaire or a 100 millionaire, and Joe Biden is not a 100 millionaire, or even maybe not even a 10 millionaire. So why that we didn't need to talk about their wealth. We can just talk about the action. Also, wait,
I agree.
The poll is done. Okay, You got a time extension. Wait, how much is the time extension for? Hold on. How much is the time extension for? Question mark. And can you link me the poll? Wait, I'm not doing anything. Don't worry. Can you link me the poll right when you post it so I can click it and call it? Wait, I'm not taking away from your time. Don't worry. Also,
good.
is it 5 more minutes or 5 minutes plus 1 minute for a poll? Question mark. Wait. Hold your thought. Freeze your brain. Freeze it in time.
Okay.
Hi.
The 6 minutes initially is just so they can have like a 1 minute opening that doesn't cut into their 5 minutes. All the extensions will just be 5 minutes after that.
Oh shit. Okay. All right.
Does that make sense?
Okay, gotcha. Link me the poll when you post it too in Discord just so I can see it. Okay.
Yeah, I got you.
Okay. Bye. Okay, Bo, go.
Okay, so
you
we
got
were
5 minutes.
Yeah. So we were going back and forth on whether or not like wealth is an intrinsic part. I think it's one of the reasons why the Hunter Biden accusation was so ineffective, or not ineffective, but ridiculous, was the fact that it was tied to family, right? So when you're going through the Trump cabinet, you can see they're sort of divided into classes. There's people that said stuff on TV that Donald Trump liked.
Yep.
There's people that advocated for him and were super, super loyal within politics that he liked, and there are people that had a lot of money and gave him a lot of money that you can like. I think that you can attack all three of those, and you can attack them for basically having loyalty rewarded. But of those, the only one that is not at all contingent upon capability, even as a communicator, because TV personality should not be in government. I mean, Pete Hegseth demonstrates that clearly, is billionaire. And I think that even though when it comes to the actual information, the facts of the case, being a billionaire in particular is not that bad. It is something that is uniquely evocative, I think, to the American mind.
But I think I agree right now with your premise here. Like all kinds of like nepotistic rewards. I don't know if nepotism only applies to family, but all sorts of this kind of like in-group favor for people that are unqualified or all of this is bad. But I think attacking that would be better. Like I think it's a more concise political message. I think you can point to actual harms and wrongs that have been done. It's a message that you're not going to immediately turn off some voters because again, like conservatives and apparently independents don't give a fuck about billionaires being in the White House. They don't care about that at all. So why not focus more on things that like you can't argue against this. You can't say that a Nepo hire or buying access to the White House, you can never say those are good things. There's like no room for disagreement there. Like it's almost like a no reasonable mind can disagree, you know? And then the way that you would get rid of those things is by getting rid of ways to curry favor or getting rid of like rent-seeking behavior there. Whereas this whole like, what about the billionaires thing? All that leads you to are the other 2 points that you already agreed with me on, and that the policies are completely misguided and most of the claims around the access they exercise are not correct. Like it leads to those other 2 things very naturally, right? Because if you're saying billionaires are bad because they buy access to the White House, we have to get rid of the billionaires, but that doesn't even get rid of all the other ways you could buy access to the White House, and it hurts a lot of people who don't buy access.
You're not saying billionaires are bad. Yeah, I understand that. You're not saying billionaires are bad. You're saying billionaires that abuse their power are bad. And your second point touches on one of the things I wanted to say, which is just to go back to the idea that you need to focus on the Trump White House and on the Trump admin. I think that one of the only ways that you can be most effectively anti-Trump is to have an appreciation for what America is. Because if you're like a super progressive person that thinks America's always been super corrupt, always been run by billionaires, then you're not ever going to be able to drive voters out because you're saying that things are the same way. It's a limiting element to your belief. But if you are emphasizing that Donald Trump is unique in the degree that he gives billionaires in particular access, that is a specific lane of attack that is specifically against billionaires. That is.
Wait, I don't understand. There's a specific action that you can call out. Why would we extend this to all billionaires? I just don't understand. People buying access to the White House. You are. You keep saying. You keep explicitly you are. Otherwise, you would disagree with me. You would say it doesn't matter if you're a billionaire or 100 millionaire or a 10 millionaire. You shouldn't be able to buy access to the White House. Period. That's it. Okay, all the people that spend $1 million and went to Mar-a-Lago. That's all.
Forget the word billionaire.
Okay.
Yeah. Forget the word billionaire. I'm talking about the super wealthy, the elite, quote unquote, the smoke-filled room. If you can conjure up the image of the smoke-filled room in the eyes of the American people, that is an effective way to disincentivize and to alienate people from the Trump White House, in addition to all the actions that they're doing, which will be the primary reason why Democrats will probably win in the midterms and during the next election.
Sure.
I'm not making a general claim about billionaires. I've already said that. I'm also really just talking. I use billionaires too much because you use billionaires, and that's not an attack at all. It's just I think it distracted the conversation. I'm just talking about the super wealthy, and I think it is effective. It is important to call out their undue influence specifically on the Trump White House. And I guess the disagreement, and we're talking in circles now, is that you think that we should just be talking about undue influence in general.
Yes.
Right.
Or on the White House. On the White House, you can talk about the undue influence is really, really, really bad. There's nothing wrong with being super wealthy, but there's a huge problem with undue influence, and people can buy that with wealth or with social capital, or if they're leaders of other countries. There are a variety of ways to get there. But when you just the problem is that when you target the fact that it's super wealthy that can buy into the White House, people don't look for ways to make it so super wealthy people can't buy into the White House. They make it so that we can get rid of the super wealthy. Like that somehow fixes the problem, but that's not actually the problem. That wasn't the problem. It's a very, very small number of super wealthy people that try to buy access to the White House. The big problem are the people that do, right? That's a huge issue in a variety of ways.
Yeah. But I think we're in a different world, which is again why I'm trying to make a
yeah. But where's
specific
your
claim.
evidence? But where's the evidence that like the billionaire messaging has been effective? Bernie underperformed Kamala in Vermont. The Justice Dems
Yes, I
never grew into
completely
their
agree.
margins.
No,
So what is our evidence
Trust me,
of like the
squad,
billionaire?
the hyper left.
Yeah, but what is the evidence that the anti-billionaire messaging is working anywhere?
I'm mostly thinking about the recent Democrat strategy to basically attempt to unify Elon Musk and Donald Trump's in the American people's eyes, because even though Donald Trump is not particularly popular in people's minds, he is still orders of magnitude, literally more popular than Elon Musk. And people do not like the fact that there's a billionaire that is just there because he's a billionaire, because he helped Donald Trump screwing around in people's
Wait, hold on.
I think that,
I'm checking the results of the poll. Oh, fuck, okay.
Yep.
Okay. I don't know if I should respond to your final sentence. I'll respond to your final sentence. Thank you for your time. I will say that I don't think that people don't like Elon Musk because he's a billionaire. I think they don't like him because he's weird and autistic. That's my...
All right, have a great day.
Okay, love you. Thank you.
Bye.
Okay. 1 minute opening statement. Go.
So, let's start with not politically a non-starter. So, I disagree with this completely because, firstly, it's already established, like since Obama, and pivot, from this talking point, firstly, will be weird. Will be viewed like Zoc controlling, especially in this climate. So, at least that should be addressed. And also, it's not that politically toxic like communism or any other mega, for example, talking points. So I disagree on that. Now, what I agree with that the current messaging is not best, not for it's not true, but it's in negative light for no reason at all. When it easily can be shifted to gratitude, acknowledgement, and benefits for billionaires and for their even just tax contributions.
So I guess, so the question is like, so because you're starting the political non-starter part, like what is the evidence that this messaging is effective? Because politically, I just don't see it happening at any elections. Like what are we looking at to show that like the anti-billionaire sloganeering is working for anybody?
Well, I would start with that currently administration making everything to make it positively working. Like I know you're addressing in the article that in the previous and elections and even current that it didn't work that well, but apparently it's shifted. Wouldn't you agree?
No. I mean, it failed in 2016 and 2020 and in 2024. Where is the evidence that it's like shifting? I think that people are mad about particular things happening. I don't think there's like an anger at just like billionaires in general.
Well, there's definitely anger at the insider trading that was latest, and it's definitely attached to the wealthy, not the just regular insiders in the MAGA.
Yeah, but insider trading doesn't have an intrinsically, like a lot of people are mad at insider trading in Congress, but I don't know if any of those people are billionaires. Most of them aren't even ultra wealthy, depending on how you define it, I guess. But
well, no, like the couple of dudes that Trump, like, oh, you made 900 millions, it's kind of in the range of the wealthy. And you said that those people kind of make outrage for the public.
Yeah, but not because of their being billionaires. It's because of the things that they're doing.
Yes, I understand, but they wouldn't be able to do those things. It's just not the random people that Trump on the street told the insider information. They definitely have not, they don't have famous, so they definitely have the wealth. You say that?
For which things? Or can you be more specific? What do you mean there?
Well, I don't know the names of them, but at the press conference, there directly he was addressing how much those people made.
Oh, I think he said it one thing at like a when he was speaking in something like this guy made $900 million or whatever, which is really bad. But again, like people would fixate on any amount of money being made in an illegal or I think an immoral way, right? Like the median net worth of Congress is $1 million, and people hate like congressional insider trading. Like both sides talk about this, but it's hard to get the public to even care about that. I just don't know where I just don't see like the billionaire thing just doesn't look like it's working anywhere. I don't see anybody having success with that talking point.
But my issue is that wouldn't pivot be more problem than just change it to positive light?
Change it to, what do you mean by change it to a positive light?
Like addressing the billionaires for making more tax, but with benefits, not viewing them with shame, demonization, and like obligation, but more like gratitude.
Well, but you can't view them. You can't view them positively in any way if we're constantly demonizing them. And it feels like the Democrats have a huge problem with demonizing almost all success, is what it feels like. I think that's a big undercurrent in a lot of Democratic messaging.
Yeah, I understand, but the tax the rich can be positive. I'm saying that in the campaign they shouldn't
we can say tax the rich, but like Trump is winning elections on, and people are pushing for like the extension of the tax cuts. It feels like people just don't care about this talking point that much.
Well,
I just don't see politically like where the evidence is of people caring about this. That's what I'm saying. For like a political non-starter, it doesn't seem to be working that much.
How do you view it dropping that talking point?
How do I view what?
How would you view the process to dropping that talking point? I understand that.
I think people I think people should focus on like the bad things that are happening. So the way that you can, I mean, if you don't talk about like money directly, buying access to the White House is probably not good. Funding like political campaigns and super PACs, that might be a thing that we need to look at in terms of legislatively, like how can we change fundings of stuff around campaigns? Like I think conversations like this, I think would be much better, or conversations specific about corruption, like, you know, disclosures from cabinet members or whatever when it comes to trading. Like these would be, I don't know, this would be politically more effective. I'm sure you could find a way to like phrase them more politically effective. I just did it very dryly there. But just the billionaire talking point, it's just hard to believe that it's doing anything.
So you're saying more about the regulation, about the money impact, and less about the people.
Not even, well, I mean, the money is one way, but just like spending on super PACs or just like bad, like immoral behavior or behavior that we should criminalize. And it feels like right now the Democrats are just obsessed with like criminalizing, I guess, like billionaires. Like I hear so many times, no one should be a billionaire. Like that's why. Like it just sounds like you're shitting on a certain like wealth bracket. I don't know. That's my feeling.
No, I agree with that talking
also,
point. But
the timer's expired. I'll give you your final sentence. Go for it. You have one more sentence that you can get out. I'll give you the last word. Go ahead.
Okay. Don't you view the possibility to use the established infrastructure for making a positive light instead of negative? Or just drop it and talk about only the corruption or regulation about that?
I think you should just talk about the latter. Just talk about corruption and regulation and all that, yeah. But thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, be careful.
Okay, you too.
Bareric, go.
Hello. So after reading your editorial, I would characterize it as downplaying the impact that billionaires and large concentrations of wealth have in American politics, with billionaires kind of being the pinnacle of large concentrations of wealth here. And I kind of like something you said earlier today in your stream, where we should be focused more on the goals, the results of what we want. And I would think that one of the goals of democracy is equal representation for each person, not representation proportional to their wealth.
I would disagree. I mean, I think definitionally speaking, there's always ways to have more representation, whether it's because you're from a famous family or you're politically powerful. Like, I think we strive for one person, one vote. I wouldn't say we strive for every single person having the exact equivalent influence on American politics, no?
We don't need exact equivalent influence, but we can tone down the excess influence that, you know, being able to buy a public forum perhaps can exert on people's opinions.
Sure.
One of the first points that I took issue with in the editorial was kind of this cherry picking of a few losses recently that were outspent by their competitors, when overall sites like Open Secrets kind of shows a historical trend of more spending resulting in more election victories.
Well, it shows that people who raise more money win elections, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's because they spent more. So Open Secrets is actually where I pulled my some of those examples from, and you can call it cherry picking, but I would argue the opposite is cherry picking as well. So for instance, in a lot of those outspending things, they either don't have an opponent or the opponent has not spent like 100 to 1 because they're not really fundraising much. It's not a popular district. I'm sure that like spending can help to some extent, but there's a huge correlation with this person is more popular, therefore they've raised more money, therefore they spend more. But that doesn't mean that them spending more is why they won the election.
Sure, I didn't say causation, I said correlation. There might be as well other variables that impact that. The correlation is something that I would say is one part of auxiliary data point there. But furthermore, the large donors can hedge their bets by giving to both parties. So whether or not which party wins, we've seen that they can remain in good graces of decision makers. Recently in the editorial, you showed how 83 billionaires supported Kamala over 52 supporting Donald. But in 2016, I was looking through it and I could only find like 15 billionaires backing Donald Trump back in 2016 publicly, which kind of shows that billionaires tend to favor more establishment candidates on both sides, with the cross-aisle support subtly constraining policy debates that will serve the billionaires' core interests, which kind of leads into the call out of the 10%. There's only a 10% disagreement between core issues of the middle and working class versus billionaires. But in that, the Gillen and Page study highlights that the remaining 10% are usually the extremely contentious issues, and the wealthy do win those. Historically, looking at some examples, we had the Clinton-era healthcare reform, where majority of Americans supported some sort of universal coverage, whereas only a smaller share of the wealthy donors agreed.
So I think that in looking at that paper, the criticism of that paper is I think the ultra wealthy did get their share more of the time, but it was like 53% to 47%. So it was about split. But the second thing is we can look at that healthcare thing. I haven't seen that particular example. I have to go and look at it. But I know that one of the examples listed in one of the critique papers was, for instance, billionaires and ordinary citizens disagreed on public funding for elections, with billionaires or the ultra wealthy being overwhelmingly or much more in favor of publicly funding elections, but ordinary citizens weren't in favor of that. So just because like a billionaire might have a particular preference in a certain direction doesn't even necessarily mean it's like a more conservative economic policy. Like I think we can disagree on things. Like it wouldn't surprise me. I don't actually know. It wouldn't surprise me if the ultra wealthy were generally more pro-choice than pro-life. But like if the policies, or if that was a disagreement between the ultra wealthy and the population right now, I guess, has kind of won out on the has won out on the pro-life debate. Did I say the wrong thing there? That the ultra-wealthy be more likely to be pro-choice is what I meant to say. I don't know if I said that or not, sorry. But the ordinary population, okay, yeah, sorry. The ultra-wealthy probably more likely to be pro-choice, I guess. But the ordinary citizen, now we've gotten to like a pro-life almost position, in the very least in that like Roe and Casey have been overturned.
Sure, that's actually really interesting because maybe the ultra-wealthy are more pro-choice, but being pro-choice doesn't help protect their interests of being ultra-wealthy. You know, more abortions or less is not going to cause their wealth to plummet and them losing their primary tool of advocacy for their policies, whether that be lobbying, funding think tanks, donations direct to candidates, or through super PACs.
Yeah, but does a single-payer healthcare thing, does that hurt their ultra-wealthy status?
The ultra-wealthy who own interests in insurance companies in the medical industry, if single-payer healthcare has a threat to the profitability of those industries, it certainly would be in their interest to avoid that. I
would have to see the numbers on that. This is a numbers argument. Two, I don't think that the insurance industry is like the most profitable industry. I think that people allocate their capital to a huge array of industries, and the insurance industry is probably not the one, unless you're like in the scam insurance industry, it's probably not one where a ton of billionaires are invested in, would be my guess.
It doesn't have to be the most profitable. It just has to be one of the ways that they can protect their profitable interests.
Well, when I say not the most profitable, I just mean it's probably not that profitable. It's like airlines, it's just not that profitable place to have a ton of money in. It's just so heavily regulated. I don't know. I would have to see some kind of like backing of that. Like who are the largest class of investors or whatever in health insurance. I seriously doubt that that's like a lucrative place to put your money. Hold on. We have a poll coming in. Wait a second. Okay. There, you have been voted out. Give me your final word.
I just would like a little more interest on looking at the problems that billionaires cause. I think it could be a positive messaging switch for the liberals, for progressive policies, vilifying the most enfranchised group rather than the least enfranchised groups that their MAGA has. And yeah, thank you for having me.
All right. Love you. Be careful. Bye.
Bye.
Robbie, 6 minutes. Go.
Hello. So I took issue with some of the pieces of your article, kind of like what the other guy was saying. Specifically when it came to giving examples. It's kind of like the other guy was saying something similar to this. In your article, you said we're talking about them spending and not them. Sorry, we're talking about them raising money and not them spending. So, like, and then when you click into the source, it says 94% of House elections and 88% of Senate elections are won by the top spending candidate. So,
I think spending and raising is generally correlated. It is true that the vast majority of people that win their elections are the people that spend the most, but a lot of the people in those races, if you click on open secrets, they're basically like unopposed, or the opposite side is like not really raising much money at all because these are districts that are just kind of like foregone. But if you sort by spending and you look at the opposition spending, there's a decent amount of examples where the other side outspent the one side outspent the other side and they still ended up losing the election. So I feel like you just have to have we have to have a better conversation about why are some people winning their elections and some people are losing their elections. I guess a better analysis might be to break out all of the data where the elections are within 5 points and then look at the spending from one side to another. But the big issue is that, like, when you talk about people raising money, like, the more popular person is always going to raise more money, but it would be fallacious to assume that they won the election just because they raised more money, right?
Yeah. So I guess that's where you kind of get to super PACs, because their main source of revenue is from rich people, right? So like billionaires. And
I'm not sure if that's true. It wouldn't surprise me if that was true. I don't know how much they raise from small dollar donos. My guess is it probably is, because if you're a small dollar dono, you can just donate to the campaign directly. So super PACs are probably funded by wealthy people more often than not. That'd be my guess. Yeah.
Yeah, I would think so too. We could probably look it up after or whatever. But another issue I had was with when you were talking about the recent election in Wisconsin for the Supreme Court seat. You said that Elon Musk spent $20 million, which is true for the Supreme Court race, and he won by a lot. But sorry,
you're good.
There was $54 million spent by Schimmel and 46.2 spent by Crawford. So like $20 million, like it's like you're not including other. I think it was J.B. Pritzker, the governor of one of the governors, and George Soros too, which spent. I know it's kind of weird, but he spent some money into that race as well. So you're not accounting for that when you're talking about.
Sure, but even if I take what you just said at face value, if the difference between spending there was 8 or 9 million, Elon Musk would have spent on his own 20 million, which would have put the spending over the top for the conservative person. Now, maybe there were other people spending, because you mentioned Soros. I don't know how much he spent on the other side, but I mean, it's a very particular case where a billionaire came in, tried to drop 20 million, and still got absolutely annihilated and crushed. We can say that the other side outspent him anyway. I don't know if that's true, but even if it is, I think that just still speaks to the power of, if they were more popular, if they had more small dollar donos, like, you can still overcome that pretty easily. I don't know if they won just because one side had more wealth or billionaires on their side, you know?
Yeah, but I would say Crawford, that she spent money on advertising, like the link between Elon Musk and Schimmel. So I would say that could have contributed to that seat losing.
Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me, yeah. But I think it's because Elon Musk is becoming quite unpopular, or even at that point was quite unpopular in America. Even on conservative sides, they weren't liking him as much.
Yeah, and he was in the White House. So I think that could have been a factor for, like, him losing, you know?
Yeah, but I feel like that helps my point more, no? Like, even though Elon Musk was a billionaire, like, his unpopularity is being used to drive a defeat on the other side greater than what it should be. So like he couldn't overcome that with just dumping a ton of money into the election.
Yeah, maybe. Okay. I guess my problem with super PACs is that they spend an unlimited amount of money into like negative advertising mostly, and I feel like they're mostly rich people spend into them. So that's a problem to me because we already cap like individual expenditures into campaigns. So I feel like there should be some kind of cap for super PAC donations, like $10,000 a year or something like that, in order to kind of like.
I think the issue is that super PACs aren't explicitly political, or they can't work with a campaign directly. So if we're going to talk about super PAC funding, I think there's a lot of good conversation that can happen there, but it has to be like what counts as political speech and what should you be allowed to spend money on near political seasons. I think there are very good conversations that can happen around that, but that it just has to do with the structure of what a super PAC is and what. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, but I looked into this because I kind of saw you talking about this on stream yesterday, and super PAC is already a thing. Like they already have to register with the FEC. It's already pretty defined what they are. So it says an independent expenditure, which says so independent expenditure only political committees that may receive unlimited contributions. I'm sorry.
Sure, go ahead.
Unlimited contributions for the purpose of financing independent expenditures and other independent political activity.
Yeah.
So as an independent expenditure requires express advocacy, so it gives direct examples. So like you have to directly say that you're advocating for voting for this person or that person, and then besides that, there's.
Well, I don't think for donating to a super PAC, I don't think you have to. I think the super PAC just has to be like goal oriented towards some goal or whatever, but it can't be towards a candidate. I don't think you have to state who you're voting for or anything like that. No.
Okay. Yeah.
I think the issue is that like it's figuring out like what political speech is, or what somebody like. Are you limiting somebody's freedom of speech rights to fund certain things close to an election? So, for instance, if I want to spend $500,000 making a documentary about climate change, should I be barred from doing that or forming an organization to do that close to an election? Or does that count as like a campaign contribution? To say no to that is a pretty big attack on your freedom of speech. Maybe in this case, maybe it would be a good one. Like, I'm not going to disagree that we should maybe revisit the super PAC structure. I think that's okay to do. It's just, that's a complicated conversation around First Amendment rights, which is fine. I think we should have that conversation, but it has to be more than just wealthy people bad.
Okay. I'm sorry about that before. I was like nervous. I don't know why I was.
You're good. Your time got extended, so you have 3 minutes and 20 seconds more. Go for it.
It did? Okay. So to understand I guess what you were saying with the climate change movie thing is that, like what I said before, that if independent expenditure only political committees that may receive limited contributions, right? And that for the purpose of financing independent expenditures. Independent expenditure, there's already a test called the only reasonable interpretation test that's very strict with how it defines a super PAC.
Okay.
So I feel like could you name a super PAC that's already existent that you wouldn't want to restrict contributions to? Do you know any?
I don't remember the names of any off the top of my head, no. But I don't think the issue is necessarily restricting contributions, because if you restricted contributions, then you would just basically be creating PACs, no? So it seems like it's more like, it's not just about restricting contributions, it's about figuring out like what should you be allowed to spend money on during election time that counts as like political speech is the question, right?
I thought PACs were different because they aligned with political candidates, no?
Yeah, which is why I think PACs have the campaign contribution limit. You can't, because it would be a way to get around that. Oh, I don't want to donate to the candidate. I'm just going to donate to a PAC that supports the candidate. So obviously there's a cap on that as well. But a super PAC can't expressly align with the candidate. They just advocate for some political interest. But so then their donations are uncapped. But if you cap how much you can spend on a super PAC, unless you're saying a super PAC should have a different limit than than what a PAC or an individual donation to a campaign should have, which might be okay. But then it's just a question of, like, I guess what counts as the political speech there. Like if you make a documentary or if you make a movie or something on green energy or on electric vehicles or on NASA or on capitalism, like what counts as that? Which again, I'm not saying you can't have that conversation. I think maybe we can have that conversation. I think that's fine. But that's not a question of like the ultra wealthy or whatever. That's just a question of how do you limit somebody's freedom of speech rights around an election so that they're not having too much of an influence on it, I guess.
Okay. I guess I would just say that the 10,000 limit that I said is like $5,000 above what a PAC is. I feel like that would be reasonable. I know you need a constitutional amendment to do that, obviously, but
sure. I mean, yeah, that's fine. Whatever it is.
United, First Amendment. Okay. Let's see. Like something else that I took issue with was you talking about Hillary Clinton raising more money in PAC money than Donald Trump in the 2016 election when she won the popular vote. So it'd be kind of hard to analyze that unless you go state by state, basically, no?
Yeah, I guess you could argue that theoretically, sure. But then if we're just going to go by popular vote, in 2020, who won the in that one, Biden won the popular vote. Did Trump outspend Biden in 2020? I don't remember.
That's a good question. I don't know.
I think he did. But I don't remember when. Also, you got your time extended one more time. Good job.
Again? Okay.
Yeah, nice. Oh, you only get 2 though, so good job.
Oh, you only get 2? Okay. Okay, go. I still go here?
Yeah. That's a good point, though, about maybe you should focus on popular vote versus not. Although, if popular vote was what mattered more, spending would probably look a lot different, too. Like, people would spend more in, like, California or whatever else. But that's a fair point, sure.
Also, the 2024 election, you were talking about the general amount of spending that Harris and Trump, that they raised. So it says Harris's campaign in 2024 raised over $1 billion, which crushed Trump's fundraising efforts. But we weren't talking specifically about the PACs. So in the 2024 election, pro-Harris super PACs and hybrid PACs, they spent $559 billion, while pro-Trump one spent $799 billion.
Wait, say that again? Those two numbers?
Pro-Trump super PACs and hybrid PACs spent $799 billion. Pro-Harris one spent $559 billion.
That sounds like an.
You need a source.
Yeah, wait. I'm just curious what the source on that is. That's like way too much money on both of those.
Did I say billion? I'm sorry, I meant million. I think.
Oh yeah, you're good. Okay. That sounds way more reasonable. I tried to look up the spending for the super PAC and the PAC stuff because I was curious about how much external spending was going on. Although it seems like I thought I saw some people debating over what super PAC counts as like a for Harris thing versus what super PAC counts. Like when you talk about these hybrid ones, it could be possible that maybe looking into the other money spent. I guess for that breakdown, you would have to get like specific amount of money spent per state by the PACs and the super PACs, like in the Rust Belt, to see if the spending there won. Is your gut feeling that ultimately at the end of the day it was about spending in those states that won? Or just curious?
Spending as per super PACs, you mean, or
just in general, like, that like the money dumped into those races were the
general,
like,
yeah.
Generally, okay. Those are fair ways to flesh out the conversation. Maybe. So outside money brought in super PACs versus PACs and direct spending. Okay. Any other points?
With regards to that point, I would say that I looked up some of the studies. If you need me to link anything, I could. But a study found that for a 1% increase in a campaign expenditure, it made that candidate jump in their likeliness of winning by 6.5 percentage points. So I feel like that study kind of shows that ending. Although I feel like we need to do more studying how much super PACs and PACs kind of impact specifically the elections, but I feel like that kind of shows how spending generally could impact elections.
Yeah,
Although I
although
feel
for
like
that
this
one, we'd have to look closely at the correlative factor there, because again, the issue is like if I was to run in an election against like a DGGer, I would always outraise that person and win the election. But I'm always outraising them and winning the election because I'm already more popular than some individual random person, versus like the fact that I'm raising that money means that I can win, you know?
Yeah. True. I feel like there just needs to be more studies done on it and stuff, but that's such a recent thing.
Sure. I think it's also hard to tease apart like how much of an impact is like money having in certain areas, or it's a very, very difficult thing to quantify at the end of the day as well. Yeah.
Yeah. True. How much longer is there?
53 seconds.
Like, 53. Okay. So even if the middle class, so you were talking about how policy positions basically from the middle class align with the wealthy, that they agree on those. So I guess my question would be, why does it matter if super PACs could spend money basically that are more negatively talking about the other candidate compared to like their candidate?
What do you mean by
You know
that?
what I mean? Like they're not, like super PAC advertising usually talks more negatively about their opposing candidate compared to their like, candidate they favor. So
Sure.
I guess why would that matter if their viewpoints align? I know that's kind of a confusing question, but
Well, they could be targeting those 10% issues potentially, right? Like pro-life and pro-choice is a big one, or I guess protectionism or not protectionism is a big one right now. But your time has expired. Give me one more sentence, one more final thought. Go for it.
okay. I just feel like super PACs, the contributions from individuals need to be at $10,000 basically.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like Citizens United really made money come more into politics in terms of money
Okay. Well, I love you. Thanks a lot.
influencing opinion.
Yeah. And I think also that talks about super PACs and the regulations and rules around them, I think could be fine as well. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Nice. Elgora Miranda, what's up?
What's up? So, I have a problem with my issue was with the billionaire messaging that you basically telling people on the left to try to run to the center and to be against or that pro billionaire messaging is wrong.
I don't like the term run to the center because that automatically implies a whole bunch of really stupid shit. I would just say that obsessing over billionaires it hasn't helped us. It's not good. Well, three things I gave, yeah.
I think it has helped us because the people that are in the center keep losing, and all the people that ran in the center, they keep losing.
I don't know how that is the case when I feel like the most like centristy type people are the ones that tend to be more competitive. Like the maybe if you're in a super blue district, you can be more kind of like left wing, but I don't think there were any far left candidates that were outperforming or doing well in this last election cycle, were there?
Our turnout isn't high, and not only is our turnout not high, there's like the movements on the left are like growing compared to.
I don't think so. I feel like they're doing.
The center.
I feel like they were at their peak in 2016. I feel like they've gotten lower and lower.
I disagree because there's people right now that are trying to get AOC to primary Schumer.
Yeah, but that's because people fucking hate Schumer because of the cucking out in the Senate, right? That's not because AOC is so popular. Also, these are really blue districts, right?
That's why they all hate them.
Yeah, but these are really blue districts, right? Like, what is Schumer's district? I'm pretty sure he's a super safe one, no?
He's in New York, probably. Yeah, somewhere in New York. But
yeah. So I feel like the Justice Dems haven't increased in size in Congress. There have been some pretty historic defeats of more progressive candidates, and an underperforming of more left-wing candidates, and the people that are winning seem to be doing it on more moderate things. And also, when you talk about AOC and her being, cited as somebody who should primary Schumer, hasn't AOC, not to use your horrible phrase, but hasn't AOC kind of ran to the center?
I don't think AOC has run to the center. She's doing tours with Bernie right now. She's not doing tours with somebody else.
She might be doing tours with Bernie, but like overall, her policy positioning and messaging has moderated a fuck ton since she got into office.
Has it moderated a fuck ton? If you go see one of the rallies, it's still about the billionaires.
I mean, with Bernie, it might be, but I don't think she's. I don't know if I'm sure she might be talking about billionaires. I haven't seen much speech about that, but usually it's more on process and procedure is what I hear her talking about more often than not. I don't hear her fixating on billionaires as much anymore. And like when she first came in, she was backing legislation like the Green New Deal, which was insanely far left. And I don't hear her talking about stuff like that as much anymore.
I think she's generally still pushing all the left positions. I don't think she has flipped on a single one of her positions, actually.
Okay. I guess I would have to look into AOC's recent statements more. I feel like considering a lot of the far left online is disavowed her because of her, I guess, lackluster take on Israel-Palestine or whatever. It feels like she's not as far left anymore, but I don't know, I guess I can look into that.
And also, like, the scale of the impact that a billionaire has on an election is way different than the scale of a bunch of millionaires having on an election. Like, a billionaire shouldn't be able to buy governments, which is what Elon Musk basically tried to do.
Yeah, but I don't think it was through like pure money. I think it was through exercising influence on Twitter.
His money gets him the influence, basically.
Yeah, but I mean, Jack Dorsey or other people could have had that influence as well. People just decided not to really use it as much. Like when I think of the most harmful people, like Elon Musk is a really harmful person. If I think of a lot of other really harmful people, like the most harmful people over the last few years, it's people like Tucker Carlson, it's people like Joe Rogan, Candace Owens, Tim Pool, like Dave Rubin, Benny Johnson, or smaller figures. Like it's they have a lot of social capital. And they have like a huge following.
People,
but, yeah.
if you look into all the funding that those people receive, they're all funded by like right-wing billionaires.
I don't know if that's true necessarily. Like Tim Pool and Joe Rogan didn't start off as funded by right-wing billionaires. I think they have a ton of social capital, and I think they've gotten like huge audiences. But I don't think it's just.
I think Joe Rogan might be an exception because he became friends with all these people.
Do you think that?
And that's why he changed his positions and he became more right-wing. Like he's friends with Dana White. Dana White gives him a job. Like.
Do you think that Joe Rogan's political positions changed because of money that he got from ultra wealthy people?
I think he's friends with all these ultra wealthy people. That's why his position has changed.
Okay. I guess I could. How would we even test for this? Like, I feel like Joe Rogan's position has changed because he has more like anti-establishment political positions, and then he got bullied a lot from the mainstream media about it, and then that just pushed him further on one side. I feel like I can see that happening organically over time.
I think you couldn't measure like somebody having close relationships with these people and getting pulled towards their side and being more favorable towards them.
True, but if we wanted to like enact policy or design huge political messages around this stuff, I feel like it's pretty important to have some kind of understanding of what's causing it. Like I think the COVID and ivermectin shit rotted Joe Rogan's mind, but I don't think it was because of billionaires or the ultra wealthy. I just think it was because of all the stupid misinformation around.
Well, I don't think Joe Rogan applies to the examples that we're talking about in general.
Okay, sure.
But I do believe like eventually things will get bad enough that people like the messaging is only growing, and like I don't know if you saw all the protests that happened. Like in almost every city across the country.
Mm-hmm. Those
were huge. And there is like backlash theory where eventually things do get bad enough that people like that haven't bought into the messaging that billionaires are bad, they will buy into it. Like you can only do so many bad things.
Yeah, but we've been doing this messaging for like 20 years. Like I feel like Occupy Wall Street was basically this, and nothing has come from it at all. Nothing.
Yeah,
2 decades.
These things take years to manifest. Like
we're manifesting in the other direction. We have a billionaire president twice, and his whole cabinet are billionaires. Like I feel like we're going in the other direction.
Yeah. But when he strips the government of everything, and people are left with fucking nothing, they're gonna point the finger at somebody. They're gonna get mad. Like you're not gonna be able to strip everyone's services, take away everyone's healthcare, and then pretend like nothing's gonna happen.
Okay. Well, thank you. Your time has expired. I appreciate the conversation.
Okay.
Be careful.
Thanks.
Bye. Hello.
Oh, still on mute there. Hey, how's it going, man?
Pretty good. What do you got?
Okay, so I am in partial agreement with you. I think you have absolutely got it right that billionaires are not buying government to the same extent that a lot of lefty people are saying. My main issue is I think you are assigning... You know how in comedy you have the yes and?
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of the same thing. You need to have the yes and of why are people feeling this anger towards billionaires instead of diagnosing the real problems at play.
Well, I feel like my issue is that I don't think people are having anger at billionaires. I feel like that's just a message that was kind of like progressives, for whatever, seized on it and thought it was a good idea and then started putting it out. But I don't think that anger or resentment is there at all. I think that the anger or resentment might be people feeling like housing is too expensive, or people feeling like their student loan debt is too much, or feeling like, I think this is where kind of the more natural anger is. And progressives tried to direct that as like a hatred towards billionaires. But I don't think that like people have this natural hatred of billionaires. I think they hate like a lot of the circumstances around them. What?
I agree with you. That's the problem, though, is it's also another thing that I think that people are kind of diagnosing, but missing entirely. It's the entire distortion of the conversation that billionaires create. So take, for example, have you ever heard of a guy named, I think his name's Roger Murray?
Nope, but go ahead.
So he runs this coal company called Murray Energy. And Murray Energy is basically this coal company that has been going broke for like forever. Well, during the entire Trump first administration, he started buying a ton of advertising on Fox News because he knew that Trump was buying or was watching Fox News, right? And eventually his entire influence has basically shaped the entire Trump approach to coal. Like the reason that's such a talking point in the Trump administration is because Murray kept coming on Fox News and kept getting influence there and distorting the conversation. Fact is, coal is a absolutely dying industry. It's been dying forever and a half. It doesn't even make that many jobs, and most of the new coal mines that are opening just don't have jobs. Like, you're running things off of massive, machines that are basically tearing down mountains and getting the coal out. So they're acting like it's this huge job creator, but why is anyone paying attention to it? It's not because this is an actual issue. It's because a billionaire has basically bought access to the conversation, and not just with the Trump administration, but with the American people by getting on Fox News all the time.
Sure. So, I mean, like, there's a few things going here. So, one, this doesn't sound like an issue with billionaires per se. This sounds like a very specific targeted advertising issue. Two, you could say that, well, fine, but the fact that he is a billionaire allowed him to target ads in this way. But I would say that, one, I'm not even sure if this guy was a billionaire. He might have just been really wealthy. But if we steal money, we say, okay, we'll find just a really wealthy person can buy ads. But then three, like, now we're at a point to where we're like, what even is the solution for this? Do we ban like advertising buys on Fox News, or like if that's really how people get influenced by buying an ad, are we banning ads now, or what is it even where do we go from there?
I am not sure, and I think that is a more complicated conversation. I think that it is better to point. My thing is saying, okay, the problem isn't so much that it's the billionaires. The problem is people are diagnosing that there's this distortion effect, and they don't have the answers for it because we're having the wrong conversations around it.
Okay, this is how I would push back against this, because I think this is the argument that I hate the most. The problem when people act like everything is a distortion effect is that people don't actually feel like people can have beliefs that a whole bunch of Americans have. And I think it's one of the things that annoys me the most, and it causes a lot of political analysis to just be totally off. People will look at Trump and Elon Musk and they'll go, these guys just want to get rich. That's what's driving them. And it's like, well, if you look at the decisions they made, that's clearly not what's driving them. Like, wealth for the acquisition of power or the excess of power, I'm sure it's part of it, but clearly there's something more ideologically at play here. And when you look at, like, why do union workers support coal fire plants, or why do average Americans not have as favorable a view on green energy? I think if we just say billionaires, 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 the assumption is that every American would agree with us if we could just get rid of the billionaires and put our policy in front of it. But that's not the case. And then we never end up talking about why people have issues with certain things because we fooled ourselves into believing that it was just the billionaires funding the opposition ideology the entire time. I think it's very dangerous. And I think, like, Europe has seen that, and maybe the United States even with immigration or whatever. People are like, oh, the only reason people hate immigrants or have these views are just because of the people funding these ads or whatever. It's like, well, that's not the case. Or people have these views for a lot of reasons. We have to talk about those reasons at some point. We can't just assume it's billionaires funding the opposition all the time.
I mean, I don't agree with or don't disagree with you on that. My point is that people are misdiagnosing the problem. The problem is we're not having the right conversations.
Okay,
And
yeah.
that is in part because billionaires are able to get their views in front of people more often than actually having the right conversations.
Yeah, I guess, but like if that's how like tenuous our link is, like do we just ban advertising in politics? Like who should even be allowed to spend at that point? Like I feel like that just gets in, I don't even know like how we even deal with that issue at that point.
I mean, honestly, I don't disagree. The entire media apparatus is kind of broken for what gets in front of people's faces.
Okay.
And that's a problem for our democracy.
All right. Well, hey, listen, I love you. Thank you. I appreciate the argument. And
Yeah, anytime.
have fun. Be careful.
Adios, dude.
Hello. DC, you're up.
Don't disagree.
Sounds
The
good.
media apparatus is kind of broken.
Stream
for
is still on. Stream is still on. Hold on. I'm restarting your time. All right, go.
That's a problem for our democracy.
Oh, nope. You still have my stream on somehow. I can hear it. I'm resetting your timer. Let me know when you're ready.
Oh, wait, what's up? Can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear.
Cool. So I don't know how much we're actually going to end up disagreeing on here. Can you clarify for me? Because I read the article. Is your primary gripe just with attacking billionaires in general, or is it just the wealthy class as a whole?
There's three problems I have. So one is that most of the analysis on the claims are wrong in terms of like they have this massive influence, they can just buy elections. Two is that the policies that get suggested to combat these things are ineffective at best or just totally incorrect and harmful at worst. And then three is that politically it's just not very popular messaging right now. So that's my big issue. Those are my three big issues. So your question asked, what was the question you asked specifically? It was targeting the ultra wealthy.
Yeah, a bigger issue with billionaires or just the wealth class as a whole.
It's just those three things. Like people can have like just attacking a class of people who are having an amount of money. I think it's dumb. It's dumb for the three reasons I just said. Yeah, whether it's billionaires or the ultra wealthy in general. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. I think I'd probably disagree on the first point. I feel like the overall wealth that billionaires hold allows them to contribute more to campaign donations, which I do think that, according to research, bears out that it has some statistical impact on the way that not just like elections turn out. As I know that you were pointing out that the study that leftists commonly point to as a means of declaring that this is that campaign donations lead to policy outcomes doesn't necessarily always bear out. But I think that you would agree probably that large campaign donations, when directed towards not just like the actual policy outcome, but instead the generation or creation of policy, can start to have more of an influence.
Yeah, when you're talking about like think tanks or lobbyist groups or whatever that can get policy written or whatever. Yeah, I mean, that probably. I don't know how much that correlates to just like money versus like how much an industry is worth and like the major companies there, contributing to that. Although I don't even know how you would begin to address that because that's not always a bad thing. Sometimes it can be a bad thing, but writing rules or regulations around that, around like how those people should be allowed to lobby, I think is very challenging. But I don't think it's necessarily a bad conversation to have, but it's far away from just like billionaires and 100 millionaires or whatever, the ultra wealthy or evil.
Sure. No, I agree. Obviously, the ultra wealthy or evil thing is like a stupid point to try to make in the first place. I just think that billionaires clearly are having a bigger policy impact than maybe you were letting on to in the article.
I don't know if the issue
for
there
example,
real quick, I don't know if the issue there is necessarily the billionaires versus like there's a weird interplay between like a person can represent a lot of capital, but they also represent like a lot of labor as well. So for instance, let's say that the owner of Walmart, the Walton family, whatever, let's say that they go to lobby Congress or something versus 10 small business owners. We might say that, well, the owner of Walmart being able to lobby for something, that's worse, that they have more influence than the 10 small business owners. But the owner of Walmart there represents hundreds of thousands of more workers and employees and everything else too. So like in a way, like does that guy have outside influence? Kind of, but he's also representing a lot more people because of that outside influence too. Like I just don't even know like what kind of rule would we even write there to stop that, or is that even necessarily a bad thing? I think focusing on what they're asking for is, I think, the more important thing.
So I'm not necessarily arguing for the creation of some sort of rule or legislation. I'm just arguing that the influence does exist, essentially.
Sure. I mean, to some extent, I mean, that is true for sure. I don't think it's as big as people say it is, but I mean, obviously, if you're ultra wealthy, a billionaire, to say that you have the same influence as somebody who has no money is obviously not true. Like the wealthier you are, you have more opportunities to exert your influence for sure. I would agree with that. I just think that people dramatically over-exaggerate it. Yeah.
In your article, though, yeah, you said that not only do people dramatically over-exaggerate it, but it's not even a predominant problem with the current set of issues. I think that if you start to look at like,
go ahead.
For billionaire spending specifically, right? Given that in the 2024 federal election cycle, that just 100 billionaire families, right, were able to contribute $2.6 billion, which approximately accounted for 1/6 of all campaign spending. To me, that indicates like obviously like a pretty big influence on the overall campaign spending that they're having, proportionally speaking. And when you combine that with
Wait,
the
did you
idea
say
that
they spent $1.6 billion, which was 1/6 of all campaign spending?
2.6.
$2.6 billion. Okay. Who did they spend most of their money on?
I can link you the article specifically. It's
Sure, yeah.
an
I'd be
American. Okay, yeah. I'll put that in like chat afterward or something. But combining that, like understanding that the billionaires are obviously contributing a large amount to campaign spending, whether or not you agree with the figure. I mean, you can read the article later, but that combined with the understanding that for every $1 in corporate donations, so this was done by American Progress, it was like a research study, that there was $6.65 increase in, or decrease, sorry, in state taxes for every $1 in corporate donations. That's like a very direct, like statistical policy outcome.
Well, that's a correlating those two things. I would have to really look at what that looks like.
Sure. I mean, I could give you more. Like higher contributions result in more federal contracts. That's from the wiki source for campaign finance. And that's even for controlling for prior contributions, right? So like, I feel like there's so many different statistics that we can look at. Donors being like 3 times more likely to meet senior officials, right? So that goes kind of back to the controlling the actual creation of policy in the first place. I feel like looking at all these different...
You have to be careful about like meeting people, because like your individual campaign limit is $5,000, right? If you donate $5,000, I think even up to the governor level, I think you probably will get to call your governor or go to like some dinner or whatever. So like anybody can theoretically meet those people. But
sure, through a plaque. But the question isn't really just like influence through a direct financial donation as much as it is influence through policy creation in the first place, right? Like,
yeah, I understand. I guess the interesting thing, though, is what I would like to see, and I feel like it's maybe my request is too high, but what I would like to see is a demonstration of somebody believed in some policy, and then somebody donated money to them, and then they changed to a different type of policy. Or there was a policy that wouldn't have been effected other ways, but because somebody donated, all of a sudden that policy was now like put into effect. Because I feel like you get into a lot of situations where like for me personally, if I agree with some policy, I'm more likely to donate to a politician that agrees with that policy. And if that guy ends up winning his election because more people support him anyway, like is my donation there now being counted as, well, look, he bought, the streamer discount tax. And it's like, well, no, I donated to this guy because he was going to not tax streamers, and a whole bunch of other people liked him too. But like my money would be counted there as like swinging that election or something. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Of course that makes sense. That's why I was... Yeah, go ahead. Citing specifically like the direct statistical correlation between campaign donations with lower state taxes and also the ability to meet with them in the first place, because that way it's not just like indirect, like one guy. I feel like the burden to prove that one guy specifically was able to influence the outcome of like some sort of election policy would be not only, as you said, like a very, very high burden of proof, but I don't even know necessarily if you would need to prove that in order to counter what you were saying in the article, which is that just finances as a whole don't actually have that large of an influence.
Sure, but I guess like meeting politicians, there's no way to say that like this is influencing policy necessarily. Thousands of people meet with politicians depending on they have dinners and all these things all the time, right? And we can see that there are like people can meet with politicians and a politician can do an exact opposite type of policy. So I like just meeting with a politician isn't enough. I'd be curious about that thing, like if somebody donates money, there's a higher chance of like state taxes going down, but like state taxes going down are things that a lot of citizens in general will advocate for. I mean, Trump won the election and the popular vote, so like I guess I would have to look at that study. But because the strong claim isn't that corporations donate to people that lower state taxes, it's that the money is changing the outcome of the election, or the money is changing how those politicians actually end up voting. And I just feel like those two claims are almost never dealt with. People just look at the correlational stuff, and then you end up in the scenario where everybody's like fixated on like the wealth part, when it's like, well, what about, aren't there all these other obvious things that we should just target that are bad, and we just focus on like those bad things?
No, I 100% agree. We should be targeting those specific bad things. And that's why I'm saying, like, I can't draw you like a direct one-to-one, this person donated and then this thing came out of it. But what I can do is draw like a broader picture showing that finance as a whole clearly has a big output on the outcome of the election cycles, as well as like the way that policy ends up getting enacted. I can't give you like a one-to-one.
Yeah, I understand. And you should never have to, right? It's going to be an R-square thing anyway. But like, I agree, you can't, like one-to-one is unfair for sure. But then my question would be like, so what's a policy that we would draw or some rule that we would make if we had this general understanding?
Oh, that I didn't come here to argue that because I haven't done enough research into that. I don't have nearly probably the government background that you do in terms of like research. I started researching this like 2 days ago. So from my understanding, like I don't think I'd be able to draw like an effective policy at this point. I could do more research and then get back to you on that. But for now, all I see is like from all the studies that I'm reading, as well as the ones that you linked in the article, it's true that you don't have like a obviously really strong distinction between like the lower class wants this and the upper class wants this, and then they vote, and then oh my gosh, it always goes to the upper class. Like that's obviously not how the policy outcomes happen.
But I feel like that's because of the messaging. That's like how it's phrased a lot. Like the only reason we don't have single payer healthcare is because of the billionaire class. The only reason and it's like, well, no, there's a lot of Americans in the United States that don't trust the government, that have a whole bunch of issues with stuff. And then because of that, we're not able to have conversations about why do people not trust the government? Or why do people have these thoughts about the government? We're just like obsessing over billionaires all day and pretending that it's just their influence is causing people not to trust it. It's like, it's probably more complicated than that.
My bigger concern is just like because of the fact that they can get in the room using finance as a leverage, that you end up getting policies that are being voted for that don't necessarily reflect the interests of the lower class. So especially given the fact that I'm sure you would agree, like obviously less access to information, right, is going to be, as you say, like low information voters, right? Having propaganda that's pushed to you in like a very specific way, or only having a certain set of laws, legislation, whatever, that you can vote on would obviously impact in a lower information voter's mind what policy outcomes eventually end up happening, even if it's not like a direct one-to-one, like I gave them money and then they did this for me.
Yeah, I guess something I'd be curious about is I could see that low versus high information thing going both ways in that, like, if there's a low information voter, wouldn't they receive like the least amount of money spent perceived advertising versus high information voters probably having more money spent on them? Like, I'm consuming more media where people are spending money, I imagine, trying to say one way or another what things should look like. But the higher the information you consume, the more likely you are to be left-leaning versus low information voters go the other way. Would we expect to see the opposite? Or maybe there's a counterintuitive reason why it wouldn't be?
I don't know necessarily if it would go one way or the other. I'm just arguing that because of the, I mean, are you just saying that because low information voters wouldn't have the same access to media, that they wouldn't be as influenced by?
They wouldn't be people propagandizing them as much.
I'm not sure that would actually bear out. Like everybody kind of has an iPhone in the United States at this point, right? Like everyone kind of has access to the same media. I feel like you argue this a lot, that the Twitter landscape, right, is something that's like detrimental to low information voters because of how much it can propagate across like the broader population at large and affect lower class voters especially, right?
Yeah, it could, but I guess actually I don't actually know the definition of low information voter versus high information voter. I don't know how they define that. But if a high information voter consumes more media than a low information voter, which I would imagine is the case, then a high information voter is probably having more money spent on them, like proportionally to consume said media. And it feels like those people all voted or mostly voted left versus right. So I feel like
I don't think it would bear out that, like, especially because everyone has access to the same media. Like I don't think that the campaign spending is being direct. If anything, I feel like campaign spending would probably be directed towards
low information voters. Yeah, that's why I'm saying. I asked, could it be counterintuitive? That might be the case as well. I'm not sure. I feel like so. If I agree that there's some way that an outsized amount of money can have an outsized influence on elections, which, like, intuitively, like, I'm sure this is true to some extent. I think your opinion is that I'm understating it. My opinion is other people are overstating it. That if I agree to disagree there, and then we move on to the next part of like, okay, well, what's like a rule we can craft? I feel like that's a better arena to have the conversations because, one, like if we want to talk about like super PAC stuff, I think that's a good conversation to have. Or if we want to talk about like access to politicians, I think these are good conversations to have. And they give us good policy prescriptions rather than how do we get rid of all the billionaires or how do we get rid of all the 100 millionaires because these people are evil. I think it cuts us off from potential allies, and then I think it cuts us off from having good policy debate.
You're saying we might as well just like agree to disagree, but I feel like that was kind of like the crux of the argument, though, right? It would be really hard to agree on policy position if you thought that finance actually just wasn't contributing that much to the outcomes of policy making.
Well, not necessarily. I think, remember, there are 3 prongs to my argument. One is that most of the claims are incorrect. That's the one that we're disagreeing on, I think. One is that the policies are ineffective, and the other is that it's a political non-starter. If the policies are ineffective, or I'm sorry, we can have disagreements on how much billionaires influence. I can say, I think they have no influence, and someone else could, I think billionaires have maximum influence. And then we go, okay, well, how? And you're like, well, super PACs spend this much money, and that's bullshit. Like, I could agree that, okay, yeah, I think super PAC spending should be tracked more and should be limited. And we could both agree on that, even if we totally disagree on the billionaire influence part, just because we think super PAC should be more regulated. Like, that's what I mean by that.
You personally might be able to, but don't you see how like somebody that maybe would be in a position that maybe they benefit in some way from like a large amount of spending, if we can't like show statistically speaking, that billionaires are having way too much of an influence relative to, like, obviously the one person, one vote kind of proportion that we would ideally be aiming for. Obviously, that's not going to bear out 100% of the time. Different people are going to have different types of influence depending on what weight they hold in society. But ideally, that's what we're shooting for. If we disagree,
if we say that billionaires have outsized influence, then the policy prescriptions that seem to follow from every lefty I hear talk is we need to get rid of the billionaires. But if we say,
yeah, but that's.
Oh God. Well, if we say like billionaires are people can have outsized influence because of super PACs, well then the conversation should just say, okay, well how do we regulate super PACs? Which whether we agree on or disagree on the billionaire thing, I think it's probably a good conversation to have.
I agree. I'm saying I don't even know necessarily that it's because of super. That's like a good medium through which it can occur, especially given that it has an unlimited spending cap. I know that you were talking about the Citizens United issue on stream yesterday, and following that, you kind of came to the conclusion that you weren't sure whether or not that the rule passing of that would have resulted in or lack of passing, I guess I should say, would result in a different outcome at this point, economically speaking, in terms of the way that people vote for fiscal policy. And I agree, it's difficult to know. I just think that it would be really, really difficult to come to any sort of policy decision if we can't agree. We can both mutually agree on the fact that the leftist sort of messaging on this issue is really dumb. Obviously just outsizing all billionaires and outcasting all billionaires and being like, well, they have too much of an influence, so we should just get rid of them is stupid. That's not what I'm advocating for. I'm just advocating for wealthy people as a whole, right? Having too much of an influence relative to the amount of people that they make up. And as a result of billionaires making up a huge percentage of the overall campaign donations, they also end up having way too much of an influence.
I mean, it's possible, but if we're saying wealthier people have too much of an influence compared to non-wealthy people, then the question is still well, what is the policy prescription at that point? What do we do about that? But you don't agree on that, right? No, I don't necessarily agree on it, but there are still policy prescriptions past that I think are good for limiting the types of, we would say, corrupt access that we can have past that might end up unintentionally satisfying both of our desires. Now, there might be places where we disagree and we have to go back and revisit it, but yeah, I guess.
Well, we're on the same side of the political aisle, right? So we would, even if we disagreed mainly on whether or not billionaires actually have that much of an influence, right? We'll probably end up agreeing on policy prescription that comes at the end, because we both are in favor of having some sort of type of wealth redistribution that results in a better outcomes for lower class people, right? But if you didn't think that way, right? If you're on a different side of the political aisle, it'd probably be really important to hammer down on whether or not this undue influence actually exists or not. Otherwise, it would be really difficult to make that type of policy prescription with somebody.
No, because we don't go for redistribution of wealth so that people have equal influence on the political system. We go for redistribution of wealth to satisfy a whole bunch of material needs of different people, right?
No, I'm saying that that's a outcome of not having equal influence on the political spectrum, right? Lower class people not having as much say in their vote, right, ends up influencing fiscal policy, which results in worse outcomes for them.
Maybe. One thing I'll take a look at, I'll say this and then you can have the final word because we're at the end of our time, is I should go back and check that paper out and I should see what are the specific policy positions that it's Gillen's and Page, I think, right, that they pulled on. Where do wealthy people and poor people disagree, and what are the policies particularly, and what do they look like in terms of who supports what? Because like I said, there are some policies that ultra wealthy people and poor people disagreed on, and the poor people got their way, but those were policies that would have been better for poor people. For instance, public election funding was an example given in one of the counter papers, that wealthy people prefer to publicly fund elections, poor people prefer not to have it. They prefer to have them privately funded. That's the thing that I would argue hurts poor people and helps.
I would agree. I would just say that that is happening as a result of poor information being spread to them through the influence that they have.
Okay, maybe, yeah. All right. Well, listen, I appreciate the conversation. Go for it. Or get the fuck
out of here.
Where
should I send you the articles?
Oh, link them in DGG chat.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Have a good one.
Be careful. All right, one more. Good luck. Real name Misha. Hello, Hobbit. What do you want?
Is this going to be the last one?
Yeah.
There is somebody that's been here since for 2 hours now, waiting from when you had initially done it. Can we get
fine? We can have him in.
Sign up then?
Yeah, we can have him after this guy then. Fine. I'll do 2 more. Then.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Love you. Bye.
Am I audible?
You are. Wait, indeed audible. Go.
Okay, great. Did you read any of the submission of anything or did anyone read any of those?
Of what things?
There was a form on the sign up, and there was like a comment section for the disagreement, but I'm guessing not. That's okay.
I don't read them. The mod might read them though to decide who to bring in or not. But
that's fair. That's fair. It's fair. It's fair. Did has anybody really given any specific ideas, like policies that at this point?
No, we haven't really gotten into
the first hour and a half a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you might like agree with some of the specific ideas that I have. I'm not really into the full anti-billionaire framing, but I do think that there is some political angle to it, and then there's some substantive policy you can build from there a little bit.
Okay.
So like death tax, inheritance tax. I think that's a big one. That's been a bit of a major help in terms of.
Do you think the average person support? I feel like, and I could be totally wrong, but that my intuitive feeling is that an inheritance tax is a thing that would overwhelmingly hurt wealthier people, but poor people would be the ones who are the most opposed to it. That'd be my feeling, because poor people are thinking like, well, I'm saving money for my kids, and I want to pass it on.
Yeah. I think that was a big rhetorical win, though, because Republicans, I think it was Bush, Cheney. I saw like it was the Dick VP movie, so it could just be like historically half truth. Mm-hmm. But the claim is that they rhetorically changed the inheritance tax, wealth tax, to the quote death tax, and that was a big rhetorical win that helped them gain a lot of support among the community we're talking about. That's more voting for Republicans these days. I agree. I don't think that one's really necessarily the biggest generator of wealth to begin with, mm-hmm. but I think that's like kind of the big ones that I would start with, just because I think the type of billionaire wealth that people don't like is the amount that feels unearned. And I think that Trump is, to one extent, just kind of the biggest Nepo inheritance baby in the history of all time. I think that contributed to him being able to fail basically time and time again. But basically, since he just knew how the media game worked over the course of decades, I think that it's the major reason, the only reason I'd say maybe, that he's been able to reach this point in politics. Like if he'd had like a maximum inheritance, and it'd be like 10 million of the time, but mm-hmm. maybe you inflation adjust that for today, like 100, 500 million, whatever. If you make a maximum cap on that, I kind of wonder just like how much a guy like Trump would be like.
Probably not much, but considering
that same number of mistakes and still have success.
Sure, probably not much, but I mean, like you're talking about literally capping. Like think about it, your child's ability to make a mistake because of how much money you leave them. I feel like there's a reason why they changed that messaging to death tax, because these are just a very unpopular form of taxation that most people are against. That's my guess. I haven't actually looked up polling on inheritance taxes, but. And like you said, they don't really even generate much revenue for the government, so why focus on this point or focus on that tax? Hello?
Hello.
Hi. Hello.
Something. Okay. I just think that just to begin, that's kind of like just one of the starting points, that it targets a type of wealth that I think you agree, most people agree, or it's a type of grand inherited wealth that is a little bit more problematic.
Maybe I think a lot of people don't like it for sure.
At least the worst just like outcomes. And I would you agree at least with that point that, like, if that policy were 10 million maximum, and then there's just like a big escalator on the inheritance at that rate, like back in the day when he inherited all that wealth, like, do you think Donald Trump would be at the place he is in politics?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. I don't know if that necessarily makes it in and of itself like a single reason to want to do it, but...
Well, the messaging, like, let's have a higher inheritance tax so that Donald Trump wouldn't have ever existed. I don't know if that would be a popular political...
Well, a bit of my point, a little bit, kind of, is I think that we've kind of ceded a few, like, tax policies, regulatory policies, and we don't necessarily have the regulatory space to properly respond to some of the just horribly bad faith behavior in our system.
Sure, but I think there are policies that we can message pretty effectively on that would raise so much money. Like I think fighting for the IRS, that's like we literally got it in a piece of legislation. Now we've lost it because of the fucking Republicans right now, but like fighting for the IRS I think is a really strong thing, and that just would outraise so many of the hypothetical wealth taxes or inheritance taxes. Like it would just be such a strong driver.
I'm not in favor of any wealth tax really at all.
Well, I mean, inheritance taxes in a way it's kind of like a wealth tax, right? It's probably the closest thing you have to a wealth tax.
It is, but it's at end of life though.
Yeah.
Like before life, if you're a big billionaire, you can do things to avoid that anyway. And so, like, if you're putting your child in a position where they don't have hundreds of millions, tens of millions, even billions of dollars before you're dying anyway, I don't know. I mean, I have some other things too that I think would also potentially be interesting, but like, would you be in favor of any sort of like cap on a total amount of equity a person could own in a certain company?
Maybe, I don't know. That'd be something to look at. But we're at the end of our time. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Darn.
Maybe next time. I love you. Be careful. Bye.
Okay. Bye.
Okay, last person now. Hello, hello.
Hello, how's it going?
Pretty good. Cringey Leftist. What do you got for us?
Yep. Okay, I got 1 minute to chill, and then I have to actually debate. Let's go. Okay. 1, follow me on TikTok. Put in DGG.
Okay.
Number 2. I guess I'll just post this in side chat. It's the. If you just want to go down to the disinformation section, it should be House Budget Committee studies. I guess what I think is that when it comes specifically to like House committees, when lobbyists are giving testimony or organizations giving testimony, I think a lot of times there can be like a huge friggin' bias in terms of who gives testimony.
Wait, hold on, wait. Okay, wait. What chat did you link in? Sorry.
Oh, sorry. Oh, okay. I don't think I can.
Just post it in
Should I link
DGG. Go. Yeah, go.
Okay. It's that.
Okay. Google Drive link. Gotcha.
It's that.
Okay. What about this?
Yeah. So the second link at least shows there's a cost of the border crisis from budget.house.gov. In this committee, there is essentially like 4 concurring testimonies and then 1 like dissenting, and I think that's a problem. I think when it comes to like testimony in like the House or Senate, there needs to be like an even amount of dissenting and like concurring opinions. And I think that the fact that we just have like organization, I think like the FAIR, Federation for American Immigration Reform, that's backed by a bunch of billionaires, and as well as CIS, that's also backed by a bunch of billionaires.
Wait, what does CIS stand for?
Center for
Immigration Studies. Isn't like every like policy think tank backed by a ton of wealthy people? Isn't that where they get their money from?
Yeah, I do think it's backed by a ton of wealthy people, but I think the fact that wealthy people can just like pump out organization after organization.
So wait, should it be that like wealthy people shouldn't be able to fund any type of like think tank?
No,
or?
No, I don't know. I think they can fund as many think tanks as they want to. I just think that when it comes specifically to them giving like testimony in the House, that there needs to be like an even number. Like we can't just have the singular Cato Institute dissenting against like 4 concurring opinions. Like that's a shit ton amount of time.
But is the issue here? Is this like a billionaire wealth issue, or is this just the fact that like House Republicans are fucking insane? Like if I go and look up who's like the chairs of like this committee, is it going to be like a Jim Jordan tier figure or like a?
Well, I think.
Gomer type figure,
yeah, I think it's like a Jim Jordan type figure. I think the fact that there's no rule on how many dissenting concurring opinions can testify like in like one meeting. I think that gives leverage to billionaires when it comes to
Okay, but this issue,
enacting, like,
well, I don't think this
change
issue has to do with
policy.
like billionaires at all. This issue just has to do with unfair representation in the House, right? Like even if the people backing that think tank were normal people, that would still be bad, right?
Yeah. I guess I think that normal people can't. I don't think normal people have the ability to have as many organizations all moving towards one single issue.
Sure, but like if we don't use like money or investment, I guess is the tracker here. Like, how do we even make a system like that? Like, it almost sounds like we need like a command economy type. Like how would you, like, if you can't even have like funding for think tanks coming from wealthy people, how do you decide like who gets to talk to the government, or what does that process even look like?
Yeah, I'm like fine if I'm having this like 50 think tanks. I don't think that you can have 50 think tanks give testimony and then like one dissenting think tank.
Yeah, I agree. You keep bringing this point up. I agree with this, but it is totally detached from the wealth argument. The issue there is just, even if everybody was equally funded, we should probably be like, I imagine, equal speaking points from both sides, I would guess, right? That has nothing to do with the funding of either of the think tanks, right?
Yeah. Well, then I guess we agree.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Bye.
Well, I love you, bye. Okay. I don't know why he left. Wow. 2 hours.
Okay.
Okay. Hi, what's up?
I have a disagreement with your op-ed that I would like to say.
Okay.
I feel like you didn't take a positive position on anything. I feel like you were
I thought
only
about it.
doing-
I didn't know, because you guys almost made it sound like you wanted me to be really combative. Also, it was my first one. Okay, so, but I didn't offer any positive solutions at the end because it was supposed to be a little bit more combative, and then also I had like 1 to 2 pages in length, so I didn't want to make it too long. But for the next one, yeah, having like at the end, because my thesis, what do you call it in high school when you learned to like put your thesis like point 1, 2, 3, and then paragraph 1 is about 1, paragraph 2 is about 2, paragraph 3, whatever. Like, I think for my conclusion, I could have 3. I could list things that counter each point for my thesis. So I could have ended the op-ed with, in my thesis, I say, most of the claims about billionaire wealth are incorrect. Most policies that get suggested about it are ineffective, and politically it's a non-starter. Then in my conclusion, I could have had, like, wealthy people do have a large influence on the American political agenda, but no more so than middle class or poorer people. There are much better policies to target revenue generation, and then here are 4 of them, right? The IRS funding, increasing the marginal brackets for income and capital gains, and then there's one other one I don't know. Oh, a VAT tax. And then I could say that politically it would be better if we would message around like these issues. Yeah, I could end with something more positive like that. Whoops, sorry. But I was trying to
Overall,
yeah.
What did you think of this? I mean, after we got rolling, I felt like it went pretty good. But...
yeah, it's good. I think we could probably, there's a couple logistics things we can do. Having like 1 or 2 more people helping would probably help, but yeah, I think it was
yeah, it was a little chaotic at points, but my other thing is I just wanted to put out there, I had about 15 people that were in the queue that we weren't able to get to. So all the more reason that the next time we do this, please sign up. That's going to be your best chance of getting to talk to Destiny about whatever the disagreement might be that you have. And people kept asking me if we were going to do this weekly or bi-weekly as I was staging people. That's going to be up to Destiny. I think we're going to try to do it as frequently as possible, but I don't know if you've picked a topic or anything. I don't know. I'm putting you on the spot.
Yeah, I think maybe doing it bi-weekly might be good. Just a realistic writing schedule for me to be able to write stuff. I do think that if I do a bi-weekly point, then there should be 2 weeks before the next one. It'd be nice if that was done by the time we do this, because or maybe we do these on Saturday after the last Pragmatic Papers has come out, because it would drive a lot more traffic to them, because now more people would probably, like, there are a lot of people right now that would probably want to read the next one so that they could argue about it because they're hearing about it on a stream. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think that pushing it is definitely going to be a big thing, because like people that aren't on the subreddit, which a lot of the people that just joined the stream disagreements just were interested. So I think that pushing it more would be a thing, like maybe pinning it in DGG chat or
Sure.
whatever
But I think
it might be.
advertising things during like events is your easiest huge way. Because like if I push it to 5,000 people listening while we're having those conversations, that's more effective than advertising it to 20,000 people throughout the week when people are just like watching politics. So like if right now, if this was Saturday and the current pragmatic papers had been published and my next op-ed was already out, like linking it right now, there'd be a lot of people that would just click to read it so that they could sign up for the next one, basically, if that makes sense.
Well, then it sounds like you have to write 2 so that we can get that going.
Sure. Or, well, I'd write one, we do a debate, but then before that debate, you'd have me write the second one. Okay.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, we'll figure out the next time we're going to do this. But yeah, I think it went well, and thank you everybody that participated, and thank you everybody who listened.
Yeah. Well, thanks a lot. I love you. Thanks for the help. Peace out. Be careful.
Yep. Bye.
Bye. Wow. Cute. Community events. What? The Social Security Administration will no longer be communicating with the media and the public through press releases and Dear Colleague letters as it shifts its public communication exclusively to X, sources tell Wired. The news comes amid major staffing cuts at the agency. We are no longer planning to issue press releases or those Dear Colleague letters to inform the media and public about programmatic and service changes, said SSA Regional Commissioner Linda Kerr-Davis in a meeting with managers earlier this week. Instead, the agency will be using X to communicate to the press and the public, so this will become our communication mechanism. Based. If the federal government is now using X as a public forum, does that mean any bans is a violation of the First Amendment? I mean, they settled a case where Trump sued X for banning him as a First Amendment violation. So I don't know. I feel like other people should try it then. Just if you get banned from X, sue them and claim First Amendment violations. I don't know. It's ridiculous. But why are people saying, I hear it? I hear what? How is that even legal? Everything's legal. In this government. Oh, never mind. Shut up. Oh, someone donated else. Okay. I love you guys. Stay safe. Be careful. Don't die. Rip in a cappuccino, puppuccino, cappuccino, moppuccino, cappuccino, cappuccino, cappuccino. Oh, wait. We'll do fucking... Citrus City, red carpet, all out, American flag, cart between sunshine, galaxy, leafy greens, world, Uber rating, land, steady, supplements, and town. These are Mario games. Hello? No? I just got mind fucked. Mario Kart? Isn't Super Mario Sunshine and Galaxy? Aren't those Mario games? Super Mario World? Okay, never mind. My bad. Mario Kart, Mario. Wait, okay, never mind. Okay. Oh, my mind is so fucked right now. Things that people take for their health. Citrus, leafy greens, supplements, and sunshine recommended for your health. Sources of vitamins, yeah, okay. Things with stars on them. The American flag, a galaxy, Uber rating, and... Oh, stars on the red carpet. Cute. Stupid. Land, world, city, town. Places used in retail suffixes. Words after go. Holy shit. Okay. Are all those Mario games? Is Mario Galaxy? It was a game, right? Okay. And Mario Sunshine was a game, right? Oh my god, was it not? Super Mario Sunshine? Am I just making that up? Yes, it was. It was bait. Oh, okay. Jesus. Cute. Fun. Okay. Be careful, don't die.